Okay, Thursday, 16 May, year of the Lord 2024. Thank you for hanging around for the second hour of our late afternoon, early evening edition of the War Room. Of course, obviously, a very crazy day on Capitol Hill. Crazy day in front of the mics. We had the House Freedom Caucus in New York City today to back President Trump. The markup, remember, they exerted executive privilege today. The markup in the House that we played clips from last hour at the Judiciary Committee is going to continue tonight. We're going to play, if that's actually up, we're going to stream that on both Getter and Rumble, and we'll have live commentary. So that'll be the Oversight Committee markup. Just want to duly note that. And, of course, we'll put it up on Telegram. Carly Bonet and the rest. So a lot going on. A couple amazing pieces I want to get in today about and put these concepts to make sure you understand them. We have John Tedesco joins us, has an incredible piece up over at John Tamney's Real Clear Markets. And, you know, we've had John on all the time, runs a great site, links to a bunch of great pieces about capital markets, macroeconomics, all of it. Also has original op-eds. This about Bank of America and this concept of DeBanking. Jeremy Tedesco, thank you for joining us. Jeremy, walk us, what's the concept? First, we get into the details of what the shareholders are doing with Bank of America. What is DeBanking and how prevalent an issue is it?
Yeah, DeBanking is canceling accounts or declining payment processing or loans to people or institutions because of their political or religious convictions, or because they are involved in a legal industry that is politically disfavored by somebody, whether it's an external activist or a government activist, a regulator. What it means is losing access to essential financial services because of your beliefs.
Now, we know President Trump has been debanked. Many people in the MAGA movement, they've had their insurance canceled. They've been debanked from institutions they've had accounts with, had credit cards with, mortgages with for decades and decades and decades. And one of the things I keep hearing from people is that they don't get any reason. They either get something in the mail or they just get a notification that, hey, in a week your account's going to be closed. Is that prevalent, and is that legal? Is it fair?
It's definitely on the rise. I don't know if we can call it prevalent yet, but I think the amount of stories we see are kind of a small number of them. But I think beneath them, there's probably a lot more. People are very scared to make it known that they lost their bank account for some unknown reason. That's a scary thing to experience as an individual. So we've been tracking this. We've definitely seen a rise in debanking based on what appears to be political and religious decision making. Bank of America is a perfect example of it. They debanked our client, Indigenous Advanced Ministries, a religious nonprofit that does relief work in Uganda, serving orphans, serving widows, getting people out of sex trafficking. And they had an account there, like you were saying. They had the account for 7 or 8 years, and then they got a notice out of the blue that they were canceling their account and said some vague reasons for it, and simply stonewalled our client every time he asked for an actual explanation for why the account was canceled. And so this is kind of the same way all these stories go. The bank out of the blue tells you you're losing your account. They won't tell you the reason, and you're left essentially trying to find someplace else to stand up services very fast.
Jeremy, I want to go back to the specific case and what you guys did, the Charles. Walk us through the organization. What did they do? What was their purpose? Where had they put their efforts when they got this notification?
Yeah, well, the religious nonprofit we represent is Indigenous Advanced Ministries. They're a small Tennessee nonprofit. The ministry has a heart for the people of Uganda and wants to go over there and serve them, help them, pull them out of property, meet their material needs, and share Christianity with them. This is many institutions do this. Many churches do this kind of ministry work and relief work. And so they had an account since about 2015 at Bank of America. They opened their account there when they started the ministry. And then in April of 2023, they got a notice from Bank of America that said, we don't want to do business with your business type anymore. And another notice that said that their risk profile had exceeded the bank's risk tolerance. And that's all they got told. Our client went and asked them multiple times for months for an actual explanation. And they stonewalled them and would just read basically those same two explanations. It wasn't until Daily Mail, an international media organization, reached out to Bank of America about 4 months after the account closures and asked them, why did you cancel these accounts? that Bank of America started circling the wagons and coming up with reasons that just didn't add up. None of them ever made any sense. And so, that led to shareholders trying to hold Bank of America accountable through the proxy process for this debanking situation with our client, but also the broad kind of problems they have with debanking. This is not the only instance of debanking that Bank of America is known for.
So this is the shareholder stood up. Now, when the shareholders kind of demanded, hey, what's going on here? Bank of America still has not come clean. Correct me if I'm wrong. As I read your piece, they have not come clean and at least had the common decency and courtesy to tell your client exactly why they were debanked?
Yeah, that's right. And they're hiding the ball still. And so what happened was some shareholders filed a shareholder resolution that ended up making it to the proxy statement at the annual shareholder meeting for Bank of America. And prior to that meeting, which happened just late last month, Bank of America reached out in February or January of this year and said, hey, we'd like to meet with the shareholder before the meeting to see if we can talk to them about their concerns. So I was at that meeting. I represented the shareholders' interest at that meeting. And we talked about several things we were really concerned about at Bank of America, but we specifically talked about the cancellation of indigenous advance accounts. Oh, and also of a local church in Tennessee that gives indigenous advance money from time to time. So we have two cancellations involving religious ministries in the United States by Bank of America in this situation, the ministry itself and then the church in Tennessee that gives to it as well. And so we talked about the cancellations at this meeting with leadership at Bank of America. I told them that their excuses didn't add up, and they weren't even true related to the ministry and to the church. And they said, hey, thanks for that information. We'll go back and talk in-house. We'll get back to you. And they never did. Then they turned around at the meeting in April, at the shareholder meeting, and repeated the exact same excuses they gave us that I had debunked at the earlier meeting. So from our perspective, they're not playing fair. They're dealing in bad faith. And we really hope the shareholders continue to try to hold them accountable for this.
The reason I love this, I know this is actually very, very prevalent in the MAGA movement, America First, and around President Trump. And this is the first time I've really seen somebody trying to push back. Just a question for our audience. Was this very prevalent? Because it's pretty prevalent today, at least in the MAGA movement. Is this something that ever existed before, it really at kind of scale in American business or economic history?
It's definitely a newer phenomenon. It really started under President Obama with Operation Choke Point, which was kind of the name given to their efforts to use their ability to regulate banks to push legal industries out of the financial markets, payday lending, some firearms dealers, and some other things that were just disfavored by the political left. And that got stopped, but the problem itself didn't get resolved. And really the problem comes down to the fact that these big national banks they're nationally chartered, and what comes with that is pervasive federal regulation and oversight. Part of that oversight includes reputational risk. And what the banking regulators have done is say that reputational risk doesn't just include what the bank does and the bank's behavior, but it also includes negative publicity about your clients. And so what that means is banking regulators there's a lot of secrecy around banking regulation and the day-to-day kind of regulatory conversations that occur. They can go to the banks and say, hey, you've got this client that has some pretty negative publicity. We think it's risky for you guys to continue to bank them. You should think about that. Well, once banking regulators say you should think about something, what it means is you should probably walk away from them as a client. We see this in New York right now. The New York State Department of Finance, there's a case at the U.S. Supreme Court involving them trying to force banks and insurers in New York to stop providing services to the NRA because of the NRA's promotion of Second Amendment rights. And so the problem is this reputational risk regulation opens the door for abuse by government regulators and also by third-party activists who create a public problem, a public relations problem, because they don't like a customer of banks. And then the regulators kind of come in on the backside and say, hey, did you see this dust up in the public square about this client that you bank, you should think about that from a reputational risk perspective. So there's a huge risk. And I should just add, Steve, that it's also a risk related to the financial data that the banks have on their customers. We know that the federal government is starting to ask banks to scour the records of their clients and their customers for politically charged terms and send them information about those customers in these kind of drag nets to identify domestic threats or domestic terrorists. And we see that happening, not just in legitimate ways, but where they're sweeping in people's political activities, their purchase of religious texts, their purchases at Dick's Sporting Goods and Cabela's and things like that are pulled into this very broad dragnet by the federal government, and the banks are working with the government to do that. So there's a lot of risk that the financial institutions could be weaponized against Americans' First Amendment rights, and that's what we're concerned about.
Jeremy, I know you're representing these small Christian missionaries, but what do you recommend that we do about this? What do we recommend the War Room Policy? What is Congress supposed to do? How do we sort this thing out?
Well, Jim Jordan has taken a great step by shining the sunlight on this problem through his House subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. I testified before that committee on March 7th of this year on these issues, and he's really digging deep on the collaboration between big banks and big government to surveil American citizens and their private financial data. That's really important. We also helped lead a coalition this year that got a piece of legislation passed in Tennessee and signed by the governor just a couple weeks ago. It's a DeBanking piece of legislation that basically says the big banks in the country cannot make account closure decisions on the basis of the political or religious beliefs of its customers, or if the customers are involved in industries that are disfavored by ESG, fossil fuels, all kinds of energy industries, agricultural industries. And so there's a lot I think that the states can do from a regulatory perspective to create a counterweight to some of the pressure coming from the federal government, the federal regulators, and just the big national banks.
Jeremy, where can people go now, your website, social media, all of it, to find out more about the Christian missionary, the pressure they're under, and also what your testimony and other writings regarding this topic?
Yeah, they should go to adflegal.org. Alliance Defending Freedom is our organization's name, and they can find a lot of information right there.
We've had a couple of your partners on here. People love Alliance Defending Freedom. You guys do great work. You are known for taking on underdogs, and I think our audience really appreciates it. So we'll get everybody over to the site today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy Tedesco. Another fight. This debanking is much more prevalent, and if you've had issues, make sure you go over to ADF's site, because I know President Trump, people around President Trump, is a big issue. And this is one of the weapons that they've used. Chris Talgo joins us. There's an incredible piece. We've had Scott Besson. In fact, Scott's on tomorrow. We had Jason Trennert, one of the top Wall Street analysts, up here this morning. We had EJ yesterday when the CPI broke, and we did the PPI with him also. But I read a piece in The Hill that I think is the best concise piece for how Biden and this Biden regime are kind of detached from economic reality. Chris Talgo wrote it. It's up at The Hill. It's incredible. Chris, walk me through it, because I mean, this audience, we process a lot of this, but you actually laid it out pretty systematically. And it's one of the things we keep harping on. You have economic reality, and then you have the spin. You just broke it down. So can you walk us through the piece?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, thanks for having me. The Biden administration, is constantly saying that the economy is great, Bidenomics is, working, to a T, and everything's great. But we know that that's not true. And we know that that's not true for many reasons. First of all, the polls say that it's absolutely not true. People continue to cite inflation and other economic problems because they can't pay their bills on a monthly basis. So despite the media spin that the economy is hunky-dory, obviously it's not, and American people know that. So what I tried to do was just look at some data points to see how bad things are. So first off, almost 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 78% to be precise. Now, the number one cited reason why they're living paycheck to paycheck is high monthly bills. High monthly bills. We're talking energy bills. We're talking gasoline. Just all the stuff that has just gone up so much under the 3+ years of the Biden administration. Aside from that, people also are not even able to make monthly payments. So auto loans are past due. Credit card delinquencies are way up. Credit card total debt has skyrocketed by $300 billion over the past 3 years. Credit cards are maxed out. So people are resorting to putting this on credit. That's really, really bad, because also with these high interest rates, these monthly credit card bills are going through the roof. So people are not even able to pay down their principal. They're just trying to, stave off higher interest rates. So you got that going on. Aside from that, just across the entire economic spectrum, you've got people who are complaining that, hey, Biden said he was going to, make the economy better from the middle out and the bottom up. That is just completely untrue. Everything that Biden has done has actually increased the wealth of the top 10%, his wealthy and connected donors. When you look at his energy policies in particular, this is really the case. So expensive electric cars, people don't want them. Ordinary blue-collar American, hardworking Americans don't want them. However, the Biden administration is trying to force all Americans into a pricey electric vehicle. And they say, well, guess what? You can get a $7,500 subsidy from the federal government. Guess what? People don't have $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to spend on a brand new electric car that doesn't even work the way that the Biden administration says that they do. So just across the spectrum, Americans are struggling. Biden and the administration seem to be completely out of touch with this. They keep harping on that Bidenomics is great, and that when he came into office, somehow the economy was in turmoil, which it absolutely wasn't. The inflation rate was actually 1.4% when Biden came into office. All the government spending, all the terrible energy policies have created what we are now facing. And apparently President Biden just doesn't want to even address it.
I'm going to have a tax expert on next, but before I finish, I want to go right back to the heart of this. It happened in the beginning of 2023 when the new Congress came in, and he just put it out at Brookings the other day because you nailed it. The people, stock market hit all-time high today because of easy money, right? The top 5%, top 1% are benefiting from that, not the rest of the country. The middle class is being hollowed out. You said that his policies are all basically, essentially enrich the wealthy. Yet every so often, just for the mainstream media, they got to be performative and come out. I mean, he came out in 23, says he's going to have this billionaires tax. Is going to be 25% of the billionaires are going to do this, going to do that. And they dropped it in a couple of weeks. After a few media hits and getting some buzz that, they're against the wealthy, and really looking out for the little guy goes away. They just did almost the exact same thing at Brookings the other day. They talk about, President Trump's tax cuts are going to go away in 2025, and they came out almost to a comma exactly what they did in 2023. I just want you to reiterate of how the policies here are actually aimed at enriching the already wealthy and gutting the middle class.
That's exactly the case. And it's funny that you mentioned those tax cuts, because we did an analysis on the IRS tax data. And despite the claims by the administration and the mainstream media that these tax cuts that the Trump Tax Cuts and Job Act, were supposedly, benefiting the wealthy, no, that's not true whatsoever. They were actually overwhelmingly benefiting the bottom 20% of people at the economic ladder. Another thing that is really important to say is during the Biden administration, income inequality has actually increased. It's at an all-time high. During President Trump's administration, due to his deregulatory policies, due to his pro-America energy policies, guess what happened? The people at the bottom 20%, their wages were going way up, even faster than the people at the top. So really what we have going on here is the Trump, what I'd like to call MAGAnomics, is all about trying to help, the middle class, the hardworking Americans who are trying to start jobs. It's these deregulations, it's his low taxes. The Biden approach is the exact opposite. It's all about helping his politically connected donors with these green energy schemes and all this other, government spending that, of course, helps people who are already in, high connected places. That's the biggest difference between the two. And I think the American people are absolutely understanding that. The mainstream media is trying to, tell people, don't believe what you're seeing, don't believe your bank statements and all that kind of stuff. The economy's great, but the American people aren't buying it, and the polls show that.
Oh, he actually said that even Aaron Burnett, as bad as CNN, as bad as Aaron Burnett, she had to push back. He says, Americans got more than enough money. Nothing's a problem. You're doing incredible work over Heartland. Before you go, I just want to hit me with one number. What percentage of the American people, sir, are living paycheck to paycheck?
78%, nearly 8 in 10. And you know what's really crazy about that? These are people who are making $150,000, $200,000 a year. These are not people who are just scraping by on $50,000 salaries. So these, especially the energy policies, that's what's really crushing America. We also need to understand that, grocery prices are through the roof too, but that's also because, energy is baked into the entire economic cake. So, it costs more money to transport goods and services. It costs more money to, keep the electricity on in these giant buildings. Americans are just sick and tired of it. And I think, come November 5th, there's going to be a complete landslide.
I agree with you that in full spectrum energy dominance, which was President Trump, full spectrum and not energy independence, full spectrum energy dominance, that's what underpins the rise of PPI, the wholesale prices, and that clearly rolls through CPI also. Chris, you guys are doing great work over Heartland. I know you've got one of the colleagues, I think it's Burnett, doing a great job. How do people get to Heartland? How do they get to your social media? But I want everybody to pile in over Heartland and get all the great analysis you guys are doing.
Yeah, just please go to heartland.org. We got a lot of great stuff. Like you said, H. Sterling Burnett does a lot of great work on climate change. We've also been doing a lot of work on the 2020 election, the mail-in ballot fraud, and how it looks like it's might happen again in 2024. So we have a lot of work to do, and we're trying to make sure that America stays a free country.
You guys are the tip of the spear. Thank you for joining me, brother. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
Joshua Hanna. Joshua, I wanted to tee you up with the first two, but also I want to talk about the Oracle of Omaha said the other day when they're having the Berkshire Hathaway conference where he comes out, he says, look, you've got a deficit here at 7% of GDP. The political class clearly doesn't have any will to cut this spending at all. So you're going to have these regressive taxes of inflation, right? The regressive taxes of interest rates. And you're going to have the third, he laid it out there, you're going to have massive tax increases. He used the word massive tax increases. Right now, we see what's happening. The spending's not going to stop. The 10,000 IRS agents are coming, and they're coming after the middle class. Everything about the wealthy is performative, just performative, because they've got great tax lawyers. They've got accountants. They do this. They use the tax code to increase their wealth. That's how the tax code's written in Washington, D.C. But for the average guy, Joshua, what do they have? Where can they go, and how can you guys help over Tax Network USA?
When they proposed the Inflation Reduction Act, the fake news was going crazy, saying, "No, we're going after the billionaires. They're not going after people making less than $200,000 a year or whatever it was." But now we're seeing CP504s being sent by the millions. IRS is coming after people who owe back taxes. They're filing tax returns at a rapid rate for people who haven't filed. They're looking to collect. The worst thing you could do is try to wait for your paperwork or say, I'll do it next week, or even handle it on your own. You don't want to pretend to be a tax lawyer, an enrolled agent, or a CPA. And also, if the IRS is filing for you, you don't want to file a response and challenge it on your own because you may be held liable if you make a mistake. So what we do, we put a protection order immediately on the account. We don't wait on hold with the IRS longer than 2 minutes, okay? Once we get a declaration of representatives for our clients, we will reach out to the government, put a protection order, let them know that we're handling it from here, and then we'll tailor the strategy based on the findings from the IRS.
Okay, here's where I'm gonna hold you through the break. First off, what's a CP504?
It's a dispute to tax liability. So basically, somebody who has a balance with the IRS, that's their window of time. They give you about 30 days to challenge a dispute. And it's really just a bait and switch to get you to call, wait on hold for 5 hours, and then be put in a pressure cooker with an IRS agent who's not working in your best interest. You want to make sure that you use the IRS standards for living, IRS guidelines, and sometimes when you're working with these Treasury officers, they're not going to disclose that to you because you've waived your rights to speak with them. Okay. And that's really important that people know when you're calling these IRS agents, you're waiving your rights to speak with them.
Okay.
We make sure we keep your rights intact, and we basically, go after, programs that are within the law.
Hang on one second. I'm going to hold you through the break because I want to break this down. It's very important. 2 things you can't do. Number 1, you can't put it in the drawer. Can't put it in the drawer because you're on the clock. So you cannot put it in the drawer. Number 2, don't make the call before you talk to the guys at Tax Network. Just don't go rogue, right? You've got access. We make sure when they're sponsors, you've got access. You're going to have access to the senior people. So 2 things. Do not put it in the drawer. That's not going to work. This is all a process. Number 2, don't go freelancing and just call. Make sure you talk to the experts just like the wealthy would if they got something. Say, hang on, Joshua's going to be on the other side. Also, the portrait of the king, wow, was unveiled the other day. We're going to check that out. We got Joe Allen and Ben Harnwell in Rome. Birchgold.com. Philip Patrick's going to be with me on Saturday. He can't come on during the week because they're too packed taking your calls. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team about precious metals. Short commercial break. Back in a moment. All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, this is just like credit cards. These are processes of big institutions. And you can't let yourself get rattled. That's why we have sponsors that can deal with this for you. Like I said, it is a process. That means you have to engage in the process, but there's a way to engage and there's a way not to engage. There's a way to just dig yourself deeper, and then there's the proper way, or the way that's the path of least resistance. Number 1, when you get these notifications, do not put it in the drawer. It ain't going to go away, and the clock is ticking. Number 2, just don't sit there and go, oh, I know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to call and find out, because there's all types of small print. You're waiving a bunch of rights, and this is all highly technical. Everything with ways and means, everything with the tax code, everything dealing with this in the good old United States of America is highly technical. That's why you need an expert like Tax Network USA. The last thing I'm going to tell you before I turn back over to Joshua. They're going to get blood out of a stone here. Look, Warren Buffett told you, and remember, he's a liberal Democrat. He said, look, massive tax increases are coming. First off, you have the regressive tax of the high interest rates and inflation. That is a regressive tax on you. It's one of the ways they're going to try to bail themselves out. The third, though, because they ain't going to cut spending, because their donors in the arms industry, in the biomedical industrial complex, and the whole welfare complex, they all want more spending. So that's not going to happen. Buffett just said that last Saturday at Berkshire Hathaway. So they're coming for you. They're not coming after the billionaires. First of all, the billionaires have lines and lines of defense, like the Maginot Line. So they're not going to do that. They're going to come after you. They're coming after the working class, and they're coming after the middle class, and particularly going to come after entrepreneurs. So when you get a notice, or if you're behind, haven't filed, you need to turn to experts. That's Joshua Hanna, the team at Tax Network USA. Just walk me through the process of somebody, where they go to your site, you got the number, they call. Just walk us through the process.
They can call during business hours. Call the toll-free number at the bottom there. If it is at the bottom, 800-245-6000. They can give a call to 800-245-6000. When they call, they'll have a private consultation with one of our tax professionals. We don't charge a retainer for that. We'll give you the attention you need and put together a tailored strategy and understand if you need us and what services you need. And then from there, we get to work. We'll process a declaration of representatives with the government same day, let them know that we are representing you, get on the phone with them, and start chipping away at gathering the documents and understanding what is in the transcripts and what's kind of solidifying their collection case against you.
I just want to make a point. This thing's like a minefield, right? I mean, it's highly technical. That's why they need somebody at Tax Network USA as like a Sherpa to help guide people through this.
Well, in addition to that, the IRS makes mistakes. They're highly technical, and then they make mistakes. You know, I've seen it so many times where they've filed a tax return for somebody that's just outright wrong. Okay. And when they file that return, collections on that are pretty quick. You know, they're coming after you within 30 days to collect on that balance that they manufactured. So you want to make sure really you exercise your rights and you're not paying $1 more. You don't want to pay the government, especially this government, any more than they're entitled to.
One more time, where do people go? What's the site and what's the 800 number?
Okay, they can visit tnusa.com/Bannon. That's tnusa.com/Bannon. And they can also give a call right now to 800-245-6000. That's 800-245-6000. And just to give you an idea, you know, if you don't have your documents, that's fine. That's likely the reason why you're in trouble or you're in the situation that you're in. You probably don't have your documents. We're tax professionals. Most of our clients don't have their documents. That's what really helps. That's where we really come in as forensic accountants and tax attorneys. So you don't have to manufacture documents on your own. We can track them down. And just to before I leave here, tax season is over. Okay, the IRS is not going to be radio silent this after tax season like they were last year because COVID relief has expired. They sent out millions and millions of letters telling taxpayers who owe back taxes and who haven't filed that the COVID relief is done. So this year they're not going to be radio silent. It's collection season, and they need money. They need money more than any other agency right now.
Oh, they need money worse than they ever have. This is what these massive deficits, and they're going to get it from the middle class. Joshua, Hanna, thanks, brother. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. Incredible. Okay, I got Harnwell in Rome. I got the Joe Allen, our head of all things transhumanism. We don't do a lot of this. I do want to do more because we're so jammed for what we're working on 24/7. And in fact, I'm going to put a little bit of the Ukraine situation, which Harnwell's on top of, and more important to the back end. A couple minutes here, and we're going to cover it more tomorrow morning. Hopefully, get Ben on the show. I got to deal with this portrait. Can we play? This is King Charles. This is his official portrait, the first one. Let's play the unveiling of it. And for you in the radio audience, and for you listening on podcast, you've got to go to the newsletter. You've got to get the newsletter. We got all the videos. You have everything we put up on the show, all the charts that will enrich your experience. Let's go ahead and play this. I'm going to bring in Joe Allen first.
And there's someone asked me if I get nervous before unveilings, and well, no, not normally, but then the subject doesn't normally become keen.
No, I do congratulate you. Fantastic.
Okay, let me get Joe Allen. Joe, when I first saw this video, I think a day or two ago, I was gobsmacked. I mean, that is before other people came in and were doing other work that you're going to get up on the screen and walk us through. I was shocked. And then I was more shocked because I thought, hey, this can't be the first time he's seen it. He's sad for the portrait. At least he's the king of frickin' England. They had to let this guy, and this guy's kind of a controversial artist. They had to take a peek, and I hear that he did take a couple peeks early on or during the process, but that he was surprised at the outcome also. For our audience, I think it's the most demonic, portrait of a figure of authority I've ever seen. Joe Allen.
Well, it certainly looks like King Charles is boiling in the pits of hell in the painting. It's not exactly what you would consider to be classical kind of realistic Renaissance art. But what I thought was interesting is immediately after it started going around on the web, the image, that people started making a lot of associations with it. It was like King Charles became the subject of a sort of Rorschach test. And if Denver could throw up, they've got the portrait here. You can see King Charles boiling in hell with his burnt up hands. But the next photo is interesting. You saw this a lot in comparison. The film poster for Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula by Coppola. And then another popular association was Vigo from the Ghostbusters. They throw that one up there. You can see the resemblance quite easily, the Lord of the Dark. But what I really thought was interesting, Steve, as this kept progressing, if I could just give the audience a term to remember, and that is pareidolia. Pareidolia. And pareidolia is the tendency for the brain to project or detect images in things where the image doesn't exist. So if they can throw up the next one, you can see here the King Charles painting mirrored and inverted and slightly altered. Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second. I want to walk through this slowly. This is, what's the concept? Give the people the concept again.
Yeah, it's pareidolia. It's just simply, if you look up in the clouds and see faces or bears or dragons,
Denver, I want to put that image back up. Don't show Joe. Don't show the book. Don't show me. I want to put that image up. Okay. Keep talking, Joe.
Yeah, it's just the mind projects images onto things where perhaps the image doesn't actually exist. Now, unfortunately, the radio audience is going to have to definitely go to warroom.org to get a sense of what we're talking about. But for the TV viewers, what do you see there? What do you see in this image? I can tell you what I saw immediately. If Denver would just throw up the next one, you have a clear resemblance to Marina Abramovic in one of her classic magazine spreads holding a bloody ram's head or goat's head. And then, of course, Marilyn Manson kind of doing a hat tip to Marina Abramovic. And for those who don't know who Marina Abramovic is, she's sort of the house occultist for various political operatives, such as John Podesta's brother, whatever his name is
Tony Podesta, who's also the guy that has all that like pedophilia art. Very controversial guy. Okay, so I got the two images. Hang on. I got the two images of her, the occult. She's a witch. The other guy is a madman, a Manson, right? The Marilyn, the singer, Marilyn Manson, I think it is. Let's go back to this mirror image. I want people to look at this in the TV audience. Now, was this not doctored? This is essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the mirror image, and it's just highlighted what was in there, or they actually superimposed something in there?
No, it's definitely just the image with the colors emphasized a bit, so that you got more contrast between the dark and the light. It kind of reminds me, Steve.
Now, hold it. That is purely taken from what those people did. I mean, this is, what are you looking, Joe Allen, what the hell are you looking at right there when you see it?
I see demons. I see a demon. Now I see demons everywhere, but I definitely see a demon there.
Ben Harnwell, I'll bring you in for a second. How in the hell, this guy's the king of frickin' England. How did this happen? And by the way, the guy's very controversial. They should have been close order supervision of him. He looks like a total weirdo. He's got a reputation of doing things like this. But Ben Harnwell, how in the hell did this happen? Because that has not been doctored. Now, I've talked to a number of people on this thing about how this is the mirror image. How could they possibly allow something like this to happen, sir?
Steve, Joe, good afternoon to you. Well, look, the first thing I would say, I think your question is absolutely right. How in the hell? Because that does appear to be the origins. Look, if you're going to say that the artist Jonathan Yeo looks like a weirdo, well, all artists look like weirdos. You know what? I think Joe's post on this on Getter had it absolutely right. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's exactly, I think, the phenomenon here. I have two possibilities, right? And I don't know which is the more terrifying. The first possibility is that the artist, Jonathan Yeo, he did this deliberately because he's part of an occult network. And, of course, the occultists, if there's one thing that they just love rolling their sleeves up and doing, it's symbolism and inserting that kind of demonic symbolism into all the things that they're doing, right? Because they sort of want to leave the breadcrumb trail there. They get a kick out of it. That's the first possibility, which would be terrifying, as you said, because we're dealing with the King of England. The second possibility is even more terrifying, I think, and that is through whatever mechanism, I don't know, but this was an entirely innocent portrait. You can question the artist's style choices, but But when I say innocence, there was no intention on behalf of the artist to put Baphomet in the middle of the picture.
Full stop. How can you see when they do the mirror image, and Joe just said it's been highlighted a little bit, but not doctored? How can, unless the demon themselves, unless Beelzebub and Satan are actually not using the human agency of the artist and just doing it themselves, it couldn't just have happened. That's 6 trillion probability assessment that things would come together to be that. It's just mathematically impossible, is it not, sir?
I wasn't suggesting that it was random. I was suggesting either he did this deliberately, or through some access to the diabolic, to hell, Satan has come in and used this guy as his direct instrument.
Okay, fine.
I think those are the two possibilities, right?
Well, you're saying the instrumentality of the artist was the interface in either case, correct? Either Satan came into it, or demons, either willing or unwilling. Okay, fine. Put a pin in that for a second. And I want to do this, and maybe tomorrow on the 6 o'clock show we have to do it. It seems to me also, I haven't done the supercut on Eurovision. And Ben, I haven't talked to you yet about it, or Joe. The Eurovision supercut on what played on Eurovision the other day is absolutely from the gates of hell. I've never seen anything like it. And Eurovision used to be this kind of sweet, ABBA came out with their songs they broke, 20, 30, 40 years ago. This thing has become totally and completely demonic at the same time this is delivered. Joe Allen, you got a master's degree in all this at the exact school that Dr. Martin Luther King went to. What's your assessment? What are we dealing with here?
Well, it's interesting, Steve. What I studied at Boston University primarily was the science of religion, cognitive science, as they relate to this. It is very, very closely related. What some of the drier theories of religion, which I do not subscribe to, by the way, hold, is that tendency towards pareidolia, that tendency to project images onto patterns and to see faces in the clouds, to see, images on trees, so on and so forth, of like bearded men, that is what underlies the religious phenomena we see in culture. I do not subscribe to that belief. I should be very, very clear. That is not my philosophy of religion. However, I will say that it is absolutely true that our minds do that they play tricks. If I could just throw that in there as a third sort of possibility.
Hold it, full stop. Are you telling me that that's your pitch? Is your pitch is I'm seeing the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast? Is that what you're saying that this is?
I'm saying two things. I'm saying, one, that it's possible that all three of us are seeing Virgin Mary on this piece of toast. It's also important.
Stop. No. I want to get back to objective reality.
Hang on.
This is why I don't do a lot of this, but okay, go ahead.
Real quick. So the real important point about all this, it's used oftentimes to dismiss any sort of religious experience and say that because our minds project images onto patterns, that's all we're doing in any sort of religious experience. But what I would argue is this. The mind is made to do that so you can recognize real things. Just because you're projecting doesn't mean it isn't real.
I know why Boston University's turning out more atheists and fewer preachers. Hold it. I'm making a command decision here. We're going to do this tomorrow in the 6 o'clock show. I'm going to do Eurovision. I've got to, because as you know, I don't do a lot of this, but this one was so up in your face that something's not right. And clearly something's not right in the world today. We know it's a spiritual war. And it's just there's something so odd about this and so many people have now responded to this. Joe, where do they go to get all your writings? I need people to read Dark Aeon. Where do they go to get all your other writings? We'll have you back on the 6 o'clock tomorrow night with us. But until then, where do they go?
If you want a heavy dose of all of this dark eon transhumanism and the war against humanity, you can find it anywhere books are sold, at Skyhorse Publishing, at bookshop.org, Pay with Your Palm at Amazon, or go to my website, or my social media at JOEBOTXYZ, or warroom.org under the transhumanism tab. Thank you very much.
And if you want to have a great evening's entertainment, get your local group, your church, whatever, and get Joe Allen out there to speak to you. We want Joe Allen on the road preaching the gospel of how to stop transhumanism. Joe Allen, you're fantastic. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Thank you very much.
Ben Harnwell, we were going to do Ukraine. Just a quick update. This assassination attempt, and I'm not sure we're getting the full story of this, but this is the kind of thing with everything on tenterhooks that could lead to the guns of August. We got about a minute, Ben. Your thoughts on everything Ukraine until we get you back on tomorrow.
Look, basically, my point is this: Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, made a short video that I think was put out on social media about 40 days ago, in which he said the political climate driven by the media had reached such a point that assassination of a key political figure was a probable outcome. My only observation, perhaps tomorrow, I know Denver's got this video, perhaps it's only like a minute 25 long, we'll play it tomorrow. My point only is this: everything that Fico said about the high degree of stress and tension in the Slovakian political discourse, everything he said could equally be applied to the United States.
Amen.
And obviously that has consequences.
Ben, where are they going on social media to get you? We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Steve. Getter at Harnwell, which is my surname. Thanks, Steve. God bless.
Love you, brother. Keep grinding. Okay. Particularly in the first part of this, I think now you're looking for a still point in a turning world on your finances. One aspect of that you have to think through and consider precious metals. That's what we've partnered with Birch Gold, not just to do the entire end of the dollar empire, which we want you to get and download, but also to give you access to the experts over there that get all the instrumentality of tax deferred, tax delayed, actually buying bullion, everything. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Go talk to Philip Patrick and team. Philip's going to join me on Saturday. Also, sacredhumanhealth.com. Get the grass-fed beef livers. Get an energy boost. Do it today. Lou Dobbs is next. We are back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. live right here in the War Room.